Chapter 7, Overhaul, 1. Lord Frontera's barony was an ordinary rural estate in the corner of the Laurasia continent. His troops were abysmally small. No, not only were they small, but they were pathetic. There were 5 knights and 100 soldiers. Even then, they were more like a vigilante group. That was how the novel The Knight of Blood and Iron described the condition of Lord Frontera's barony. But, from today on, you will be reborn into an elite soldier on the field. It was a sunny morning. The perfect weather to start construction. Under the sun, Lloyd spoke to the 80 men gathered by the river. If you work hard to dig up and move everything here, that is, he pointed to the riverside. There was red clay where he pointed. A tremendous amount of it at that. The red clay was originally buried beneath the ground. However, I was able to dig it up thanks to Padong. He had secretly come here early in the morning and created the mound of red clay in just 30 minutes by transforming Padong. Afterward, he brought 80 soldiers of the estate here once the sun rose. This was so they could transport the red clay to the construction site. He looked around the soldiers. You're probably wondering what's going on and why you're being called for this kind of labor. However, that's just how the military is. What's the highlight of the military? It's work. The Korean army was the same. What about the battle training meant for protecting the nation? That was important, too, but real life was a little different. From trench to drainage construction, I was building one thing today and another next. I was given project after project, and my time in the military went by before I knew it. He had felt like he became the staff sergeant's personal summoner. That was why he wanted to give this estate's soldiers the same experience. It wasn't just to torture them. It's physical exercise disguised as menial work. Red clay was heavy. If you carried around a sack full of red clay, it not only trained the lower body but the abdominal core, shoulders, back and forearms. The boost in endurance was also a bonus. Labor builds muscle. With that thought, Lloyd spoke out. Anyway, we are about to break ground on our estate's renaissance. I'm talking about the heated flooring construction for the people. To do that, I need all of you to move that clay to the construction site. Yes, young master, a few soldiers grudgingly replied. Lloyd smiled. Good. Then let's start by stretching. Huh? Do you want to get hurt while working? It'll be your loss if you hurt your back and knees from pushing your stiff body to carry the heavy supplies. Understand? So, you should warm up your body. Copy my moves. 1, 2 inch. Oh 1, 2. You're too quiet. Move properly. 1, 2. Oh 1, 2. Lloyd slowly warmed up his body in front of the soldiers. The soldiers seemed dazed at first. But they started moving faster once Lloyd started making a face at them. The infamous master troublemaker. The notoriety he had amassed this entire time paid off. There's no point in training if you don't warm up and get hurt while working. Stretching was more important than you'd expect on a construction site. The ground could be bumpy, or there could be dangerous objects littered everywhere. Most construction sites were in similarly poor conditions. And if you tried lifting heavy objects without properly warming up, inevitably, the likelihood of an accident happening went up. Lloyd intended to avoid such accidents at any cost. I don't have money to give for treatment. I'll save that money by taking precautions. That's why I'm shouting these stupid-sounding chants with all my heart. He gathered the soldiers in a circle after he finished stretching. He raised his hand. Copy my moves. Raise your hand. One by one, the soldiers raised their hands while glancing at each other. Lloyd shouted a chant. I will wear a safety helmet. Tap tap. He hit the helmet he was wearing with his palm. The soldiers shouted the chant while copying his movement. I will wear a safety helmet. Good job. I will wear safety gloves. I will wear safety gloves. I will wear safety shoes. I really will. At first glance, it was a childish chant and inspection process that better fit a kindergarten classroom. Truthfully, Lloyd thought the same when he was a part-time construction worker in Korea during their morning assemblies. But now that he looked back, he suspected this inspection process was what allowed him to finish his part-time job safely. That thought sometimes crossed his mind. That was why he didn't forget to pound safety concerns into the soldiers' heads one last time after finishing the inspection. Don't forget about the safety precautions. If you think you'll forget, then take a look at this. He picked up the sign he made in advance and stuck it in the ground. The sign had these words perfectly written on it. Safety first. Workers, please follow the safety precautions on site. If you rush in without a safety helmet, you may end up closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. For some reason, if you act recklessly like you're leading a maneuver warfare, you will end up like a victim of maneuver warfare. You're too lazy to wear safety shoes? I hereby see your big toe has finished preparing its launch to separate into 3 parts like a rocket. Does this all seem like a lie? If so, ignore all my warnings and die from dioxin poisoning. P.S. You think it can't happen to you, right? Ha! The soldiers went silent. They all carefully adjusted their safety equipment. Good. Let's start if you're ready. Group 1 fills the sacks with red clay. Group 2 carry the sacks. Go. Yes. The heated flooring project started on an intense note. Perhaps due to their mental training, the soldiers were moving fast. He felt pleased watching them. As expected, they are relatively obedient since they are the estate soldiers. Persuading the Baron was a good decision. Suddenly, he thought of the incident that happened 2 hours ago in the morning. Black Club. So, you want to mobilize the soldiers? His questioning voice held confusion. Along with confusion, it also held suspicion and disbelief. Lloyd calmly continued eating breakfast and replied, yes. For what? There is work I need to assign them. What kind of work are you assigning them for you to mobilize 80 soldiers? It's construction work. Construction? Yes. Lloyd swallowed his bread and wiped his hands with a napkin. Then he pulled out the prepared document. He pushed it to the Baron. This is a business plan. What do you mean by a business plan? Please carefully look at it first. It was all because he got put on last night. He finally had the confidence to start a full-scale construction business. Thus, he spent all night writing a business plan. The Baron's cooperation is necessary for this business. Regardless of anything, it was a business within the fiefdom. As such, he needed permission from the Baron, who was the lord of the fiefdom. It was true from an economic perspective as well. It costs money to separately hire laborers, personal expenses or daily wages. These were necessary expenses in all construction sites. But if the Baron mobilized his personal soldiers for construction, he could work them for free. That was because these soldiers were hired by the Baron and already received a salary. Therefore, you should be able to save a fair amount of money. What if there's discontent among the soldiers? You can appease them by giving extra cash to them under the guise of providing a bonus. But a heated flooring construction businesses. I was under the impression you listened to Javier's explanation last night. Yes. Yes, I did. I heard about the strange and new heating method that warms the rocks laid on the ground. But why? Are you questioning my intentions? Yes. The Baron's eyes looking his way were full of suspicion. But thankfully, they weren't frigid like before. It's probably because I chased out the debt collectors and presented a money sack to him yesterday. The Baron was able to take care of this month's interest thanks to that. It couldn't be helped that his eyes softened toward Lloyd. Lloyd spoke. I wanted to collect money through the villagers. Money? Yes. Money for the debt. I thought of gathering money through special taxes at first. But with that, the backlash would be severe. Yes. That was why. I thought of the most legitimate method that would have the least backlash. So, you're saying a construction business for the so-called heated flooring is what you came up with? Yes. I would make money, and the villagers would be able to have a warm winter in exchange for paying a fair price. It's a win-win situation. By the way, where did you, the Baron's particularly suspicious gaze turned his way. Where did you learn this? Are you talking about the heated floors? Yes. It's my first time ever seeing something like this. So where did you learn about it? I thought of it a while ago. Thought of it? Yes, Lloyd nodded his head. He needed to be more brazen in these kind of moments. He continued talking. It's just something I vaguely thought about over the tears. A heated stone doesn't cool easily. So I wondered what would happen if I laid flat stones on top of a floor then blew hot smoke underneath them. But I got the opportunity to actually build it this time and it turned out better than I thought. It was warmer than expected too. Do you mean the heated floors you built for the pub owner? Yes. That's how you came up with the idea to make it into a business? Yes, he nodded his head like it was obvious. Truthfully, he did have absolute confidence. But there was still a stubborn trace of suspicion in the Baron's gaze toward him. Yes. The plan is good. This is a well-made plan that's worthy of praise. I almost can't believe you're so talented. But the question the Baron threw at him was riddled with doubt. Can I trust your intentions? What? I'm asking if I can trust you. I'm not sure what you mean. You couldn't have forgotten what happened 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago. That part didn't appear in the novel The Night of Blood and Iron. It didn't seem like a good idea to give a sloppy response right now. Lloyd waited in silence. Luckily, the Baron spoke up first. You were the same then. Although, you obviously didn't have a robust business plan like now. You said I will really pull myself together and study hard this time. So please believe me and make an investment. I was happy. I thought you would finally mend your ways. That was why I readily gave you the money that came from selling the villa for the academy tuition. But you completely wasted every cent with the scoundrels you used to get along with. All the while, you shamelessly played around with women and threw grimy parties in a drunken stupor. Ah, seriously. Lloyd, you bastard. He swallowed the curse words that threatened to come out of his mouth. He's a troublemaker, all right. I never dreamed he would have done something like that. He thought it was no wonder the Baron had such a lukewarm reaction to a perfect business plan. It was a given he couldn't be trusted after doing something like that. You're a piece of trash, real Lloyd. His body's old owner was massively trolling him. He wondered how he would bounce back from this. His brain worked at the speed of light. And at last, he found a clue to the problem. It was thanks to the memories of his past that suddenly came to him. Come to think of it, I caused similar trouble before, even though it was at a much smaller scale. It was probably when he was in middle school. He stole the money his mom gave him for his tutoring school at the time. He remembered using it to go to the arcade with his friends every night. From League Under Legends to Underwatch and even War Ground. It was a fun time. However, he ultimately got caught by his mom. She was extremely angry. He had to go on his knees and beg for forgiveness. After a while, he finally earned his mom's forgiveness only after making an irrevocable promise. TSK, that's the only option I have right now. Lloyd lifted his head once he found a solution and faced the Baron. He spoke to the Baron just like when he promised his mom he would never go to the arcade again. I will quit drinking. What? Just as I said, I will completely quit drinking if you give me your trust for this. The Baron's gaze toward him became strange. It seemed to ask if he was serious or if he was up to something. Lloyd never replied. He only didn't avoid the Baron's gaze toward him. He stayed silent as if he was answering yes with his tranquil eyes. He didn't know how long they stayed like that. The Baron finally let out a sigh. Is that true? Yes. He was a lightweight anyway and didn't really like alcohol either. There was also nothing he particularly missed about getting drunk. So, if he gained even a little bit of the Baron's trust by giving up alcohol, that would truly be a huge win. And at last. All right, I understand, the Baron nodded his head. He returned his business plan to him. I will trust you just this once since you went so far as to say that. I will report to my executive officer that you're allowed to freely utilize the estate's soldiers in order to advance this business plan. Thank you. This will be the last time I trust you like this. Please don't disappoint me. The Baron's gaze toward him somehow felt gentler than earlier, or even seemed to pity him a bit. The image of his mom during the arcade incident suddenly flashed in his head and he briefly felt a strange emotion. Lloyd hurriedly finished his meal and left the table. Black Club. I got through that step, but there are many more obstacles I have to overcome as expected. With that thought, his lips curved to a bitter smile. It was because of the protesting knight who had approached him while he was briefly lost in thought. As you know, I'm an honorable knight. I can't accept an order to oversee these dirt sacks getting carried even if it comes from the young master. The soldier looking his way had repulsive facial features. Of course, Lloyd knew his name. Sir Ulrich. The man he personally chose to lead the soldiers on site today. He was one of the 5 knights of the Frontier barony. Out of them all, he was the least skilled. Even in his position, he was the first to betray the crumbling barony. He stole the Baron's favorite horse and ran away. That wasn't all. He even spat on Lloyd's face during their encounter while he was running away. That's why I entrusted you with supervising the site. He called him on purpose. He entrusted him to lead the soldiers. He was looking forward to seeing him resist like this. And the bastard didn't fail to give him the reaction he was waiting for. Lloyd wordlessly grabbed his shovel. Then he brightly smiled at Sir Ulrich. Oh, so you will defy my order? I am not defying it. I am asking you to respect my honor as a knight. Slam. The moment Sir Ulrich tried to talk back, the head of the shovel Lloyd wielded violently hit him in the face. There's definitely a need to revamp the estate at least once. Lloyd's eyes coldly glinted as Sir Ulrich's back teeth scattered in the air.